And just to let you know, just to let everyone else know that I just hit the record button. So we'll
Thank you.
record this. It'll be available. I find that works easy when we are when there's just a lot of information, because this will be about an hour and a half today.
Great.
Because I just feel like that any longer than that, it's just really hard. It's a whole different ball game for us face-to-face classroom instructors who kind of get our energy from students and from colleagues that come in our doors, and that's what keeps us going. I totally recognize that sitting in front of a computer passively is it's a whole different thing in and of itself. So stick with us. Know that there's a recording. If you've got your pen and paper and you're like me and you're like, I got to write this down, sure, write it down. And another good norm for today, just like we've done already, keep your microphones off, just because it kind of helps with the sound, and you never know. Like, we had roof work that was being done here for 2 weeks, and it was kind of annoying. But turn on your mic if you want to interject and add a comment or a question. That's totally fine. We're so good with you stopping. Um, that, Miss Overturf, that is the silliest comment ever. And so I'm happy because a lot of us in this room, we've worked together for a long time, and some of you have been here every Tuesday morning and afternoon throughout this summer learning, and I want to honor that. I think that's amazing, all of you, and you're recognized, and we know, because we've been taking attendance and everything, that there's a core group of you that want to learn. And what better exhibits a good quality teacher than someone who never stops learning? And with that being said, we want to look for the helpers today. So if you would like to, excuse me, type a question into the chat box. If you have an answer for a colleague, or if you have an idea or a tip or something that's worked for you, please write it in the chat box. Have this conversation that's going on the sidebar, and Suzanne's going to be going through those, and she'll stop occasionally and post something, or I'll stop occasionally and read those chats. So keep it as interactive as possible. Those are the real norms. Use your microphone when you need to interject, use the chat box, and don't be afraid to help somebody or share an experience that you've had in using a Google tool like Docs that we're going to be talking about today. All right, with that being said, does anyone else have any questions before we get started? Any tech stuff? Oh, you guys are so silly. Katricia, come on now. Oh, it's so good to see you. So good to see you, Dr. Parker. Glad that you're here with us today. Carolyn, I'm glad that you joined. We got you all straightened out and everything. Rhonda, I'm glad that you could make it. And good to see you too, Heather. So we're all here today. So very good. We're in the right place. Just to let you know, there is a closed captioning feature. So it is. If you want to turn on closed captioning, you can do so. That's the little CC button that's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You can turn on the captions. That is artificial intelligence. That's not Suzanne typing everything that I say and getting the punctuation correctly. That would be a little nuts. But if you want to turn on your closed caption, you most certainly can. And if you click that, I always joke, if you click that red phone button, you're going to call Commissioner Gordon on the bat phone. But that'll just make you exit the meeting. Should you accidentally exit the meeting, you can just click the link and join right back in. So no worries, no fear, no stakes. We're just going to be here today learning together. So I am going to share my screen with you, and everyone should be seeing my screen here in a second, which you'll be seeing some of yourselves here. So we're going to start. We're talking Google Docs today. Now, some of you who have joined us for other Google sessions this is a real good time to kind of see how some of these things interconnect as far as like sharing settings, Google Drive, those things. There's a lot of overlap, which is great in a platform because we don't want to have to learn how to reinvent the wheel with every different application that's out there. So you may see some overlap today, and that's great. And hopefully that boosts confidence where you're like, oh yeah, he talked about this with Google Slides. We looked at sharing settings and all that. So just again, stop us if you have any questions, and Suzanne's going to be there to be a virtual facilitator to help us out. So the first thing we need to learn is how to start a Google Doc. And there's a bunch of different ways. One way that we can do that is simply by going to our drive, drive.google.com. I have mine bookmarked on my bookmark bar. So because typing those 6, 9, 12, 15 characters or whatever is just too much for me. So I like to create a bookmark so I don't have to type that. So here we are in my Google Drive. I started just a dummy little folder so that anything we create today kind of just goes into this folder. And if I want to start a new document, I can simply, just like any other of the applications here, click new, and then I can choose to click a Google Doc. And my phone is...
I found this on Google.
Sorry, my little Australian Google Assistant. I'm going to have to turn off my phone because it, I don't know how to turn off my phone. It's a brand new phone and it's beyond me. So I won't worry about that. But every time I say the G word, you may hear my Australian assistant be like, I'm sorry, do you want to put another shrimp on the barbie? She probably won't say that, but you may hear somebody Australian. That's just my phone picking me up. Sorry for that. Now, the great thing about using Google Docs in your drive is that they do not take up any space. So whereas if you're saving Word documents, like old Word documents, you're bringing them over from one computer and you're now putting them on the cloud in Google Drive, anything that's not made by Google counts against your storage space. This is really important for your personal Google accounts, but with your school Google accounts right now, we pretty much have unlimited storage space. But it's just good to know that any Google products, they don't count against any storage space at all. You can have as many as you want to, which is great in thinking about students. Because if you're going to be storing student work in your drive or having access to it through shared folders or whatever, none of that's going to count against you. And all you secondary folks who are teaching 6 periods a day, 6 different sections, and you've got 100 and something students, that's good to know because week after week, this adds up. And Google Docs are that great word processing tool that's going to allow us to, whether we're face-to-face or whether we're using distance learning or whether we're using a blended approach in the classroom, it's going to serve all of those purposes for us, which is really great. So the first thing I can do is I can start a blank document or I can choose a template, and I'll show you templates here in a minute. Another way that I could start a Google Doc is I could go directly to the Google Doc page. There's a specific page. Actually, I think it's docs.google.com. If you type in docs.google.com, and again, you can turn this into a bookmark simply by clicking the little star here on Chrome if you wanted to, or Control D on a PC or Command D on a Mac. Those are the hotkey commands for that. This Google Doc page looks a lot different than our Google Drive page. Whereas my Google Drive page, for example, I have all my folders and subfolders, and I've got a mix between Sheets and Excel and PDFs and movies and things like that. When I go directly to docs.google.com, I'm only going to see Google Docs. So it's filtered everything out. And what it's showing me are a history of Google Docs that I've worked on, with the most recent editing appearing first in the upper left-hand side here. But what's also great about this page, using it to make a Google Doc, is you've got a template gallery here. And I've said this when we did Google Slides, that I love and appreciate art. I'll go to a museum just if there's one piece that I want to see and look at and just think about. But I'm not an artist. It's hard for me to create layouts and templates that are appealing. I kind of know what I know. So sometimes I like to defer to the experts, the expert artists, the expert creators. So up here, I could just start a blank document. I've got an MLA report. If you're using something MLA style, I'm going to bring that. I'm going to come back to that later, because I found something cool that would have saved us all a bunch of heartache in college and in high school if we would have had it. There's things like product brochures, resumes, but that's not all that's here. If I click this little template gallery button right here, you're going to see that my screen is going to change. And now I'm going to be able to view a wide world of templates that are pre-made templates. And you see they're organized in the upper left-hand corner by what style template they are. So we've got resumes. So I think about those teachers in upper secondary who may be CTE teachers, or who may be like, I think of Becky Moats at Palaca High, helping students get jobs, and having them fill out a resume. Well, here's a great template lead for resume building for students. There's also different letter templates, personal things. I guess there's a need for pet resumes. I guess if you have like Benji or Garfield or the next dog star, I'm trying to think, remember the dog from Frasier? I guess you would need a pet resume if you were a Hollywood dog parent. But then there's different work projects, work proposals, project proposals. And if you scroll down, there are just a wide range of different types of templates that are already made for you here. And if you want to use one, let's say you like this product brochure because you're going to use it. Maybe you're like, I want to make this a newsletter in my class. All you do is click on it. Notice it doesn't give you that ugly copy of, whenever you're making copies of docs. This is now saved into my drive, and I could simply go through and put, like, I can just simply type in whatever I want. Not that AA Industries. Oh, that's, look, and now I'm going to correct myself. This is going to happen all day long because I won't be able to live with myself if there's a typo or some type of grammatical mistake. So this is ready to go. Templates are great. Templates are a great way to just get you started off on the right foot. And there are hundreds of them here. When Google Docs first started, there used to be about 10 templates. I don't know if any of you remember back in those days. There was a resume, there was like a letter of intent and a report, and that was basically it. But you can see that, especially in the education category, there's lots of different report styles. And again, these are available to students as well. So if you're thinking like, I do want to have students do a lot of writing, I want to prepare them for college, there are already some templates here that can get them started. And then students know to go back and look at the templates as well.
Adam, could you walk them back through how you got there?
Sure, I would be more than happy to. So to get to your template gallery, this is the address. It's the docs.google.com. You don't need to type any of the other stuff that you see here. Docs.google.com will take you to the main document hub for all of Google. And then you just click on this template gallery button. and it's just going to open up the screen, and you'll be able to scroll all the way down to the bottom and look at these different templates that are here. So docs.google.com and the template gallery. Now, I like to come to this page because, again, it helps filter out and helps me organize my drive to where I'm not clicking through folders over and over again. And I can use some of these search tools here to help filter even more. So some of these documents are things that have been shared with me. So I didn't create them, but someone shared them with me. And so you see that I'm filtering by anything that's owned by anyone, but I could also filter to what's just owned by me. And these are things that I've created. So I'm filtering out all the docs that have been shared with me from colleagues and managers and stuff like that, only to the stuff that I've created. So you can see, I don't know how I created so many test kitchens here, but I did. Apparently, these are all docs that I've created. I could choose to change the view. Now this is getting rid of those little tiles via this little grid view button here. I don't like that. I kind of like to leave it on to where I can see the image tile. Again, it helps me navigate quickly. And I could even sort them in a different way. What are the things that were last modified by me? So not only did I open it, but did I go in there and make changes to that document? Or I could organize them by title. And so you'll see that these are now in alphabetical order of all my docs through my whole Google Drive, which is a lot of stuff. So this docs page is the helpful hub for everything Google Docs. Now I could go back to my drive, and again, anywhere on my drive, I could click the new button. I could right click anywhere in a white space right here and launch a new document as well. That's always available to me. So let's go to this folder so I can save everything that I do here. And I'm going to right click because I'm a right clicker, and I'm going to create a new Google Docs. What I like about right clicking versus clicking this new button is if I'm inside a folder, which I'm inside this folder called Google Docs Training right here. If I right click and create a Google Docs, it's going to place it in this folder automatically for me. I know from our Google Drive training that it's kind of the #1 thing on people's mind with Drive is just keeping it organized. So if you are disciplined with creating folders and then creating your different document types within a folder, it's always going to stay organized for you, and you'll be able to go back and find everything that you need. So I'm going to click on Google Docs. This is going to create a new document for me. And for most of us, this is very similar as word processors go. Do you remember in the 90s using Microsoft Works? Works was like the scaled down, cheaper word processor than Word. Word seemed like it was hard to come by in 1994. But essentially, word processors, at least the layout, hasn't changed much over the last 20 years or so. Now, if we start going back to Lotus Suite 1, 2, 3 on our old blue screen Toshiba laptops, now we're talking something different. But for the most part, the icons and the layouts are exactly the same. Now with Google Docs, of course, there's other features such as the collaboration features that are very different from Microsoft Word and other standalone applications that we've used in the past. And the first thing I always tell people to do is to name your document. If you don't, then you're going to have a bunch of untitled documents in your drive. There's also a cool feature. We'll see if this works. It may not work. Let's say I start a new document title, and we're going to call this The Renaissance in Italy. Spell that right. So if that's the first thing that I've typed, watch what happens when I move my mouse cursor up to rename this document. Now, I just typed the Renaissance in Italy. I'm going to go up to this untitled document name, and I'm just going to click. What Google has done is said, oh, this must be the title of your document. It's the first thing you typed. So if this is your header or if this is your heading, this is how we're going to name it. So that's one quick way to name. Of course, I can go back up here at any time, which is great and which is different from how Word used to operate. And at any given time, I could change the name of this. Maybe it's the Renaissance in France. Makes sense because the Renaissance is a French word, right? So maybe instead I want to call this the Renaissance in France, or I want to say for Mr. Azula's class and give it a really, really long title. For any of you who have written dissertations or large reports in college, you'll know the stress of not saving your document often enough. I don't know if anyone's ever lost anything. Thank God autosave became a feature. But I want you to look up here in this area of the screen where these little icons are as I start typing. You'll notice that up here it said saving, and now it says save to drive. Google Doc is always auto-saving so long as you have internet connection. So if you live out in Barden like me, where internet is hard to come by, this is going to work a lot differently. But if you have good internet connection, it's always going to auto-save with every manipulation. I'm going to spell everything horrible today. Google Docs is auto-saving my work. Spell that right. You'll see it says saving, and now it says save to drive. Huge weight off of all of our shoulders. Everyone who would forget to save their work every 5 or 10 minutes on Word, this is a great feature. If I want to star this so that in my Google Drive, it appears under my starred heading, you can do that as well. It's kind of like bookmarking a document in your Google Drive folder. So if I go back to my Google Drive folder and I click this little starred menu link over here, here we go. The Renaissance, what I just typed, now appears there. So a quick, easy way to find things that are very important that you need to work on. Maybe it's a lesson plan template or something like that. If you star them, they go to your starred folder in your Google Drive, which is great to know. I guess first things first, let me look at my notes here. I want to look at some of the features that are made available here. Something that I really like that I'll show you. I'm going to look at this menu ribbon right here. We'll spend a little time on our menu ribbon. These again follow that same format of word processors as they've always been. There's always been kind of a file and an edit that have been made available to us. I'm going to show you a cool feature that used to be a separate add-on, but now has become part of Google Docs, and that is voice typing. We always dreamed of a way back in the 90s to do voice typing, and some of you may remember software where you had to wear a microphone and you had to say thousands of words before you could even start typing with your voice so the system could learn your voice. Google does so much with voice that they're really hitting the nail on the head here. I think about students and I think about us who need those modifications to instruction where maybe typing is not their forte because at home there are no keyboards to type on. Or maybe they moved from an area where computers weren't a focus, and you want them to be successful and you want them to complete work, but you know that typing is the tricky thing. So with voice typing, it works like this. It's gonna, the first time you use it, it's gonna ask you, will you allow Google to use your microphone? And of course, you're just gonna say yes if you wanna use this feature. But it's almost exactly similar to those of us who have voice to text on our phones. It's gonna work the same exact way. I am going to click the button and then I'm going to speak, comma, and as I speak, the system is going to try and catch up to me and type out exactly what I'm saying, period. Does anyone have any questions? Question mark. You see that the system is listening for my punctuation commands, as well as really trying to make sense of the words that I'm saying, period. Notice that the system typed sense because it made sense in that sentence of the context. But if we were talking about dollars and cents, I don't know if that would pick it up. Oh, it tried to. I actually saw it put CENTS there, but for some reason it didn't catch it up. Now, look, I don't know what IGNTS is, but it does a pretty good job, period. Again, if you use your punctuation commands, comma, and you're really slow and deliberate, comma, the system will pick up whatever it is that you're saying, period.
Adam, we had another question about, would you show them how you got there?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to, and keep asking questions like this the whole time. So on the ribbon up here, on the little menu ribbon, under Tools, so this is going to be in your Tools drop-down menu, there is voice typing. And notice there's even a hotkey command. So for those of you like me who just want to memorize all these hotkeys because of some sort of childhood trauma that makes us want to know hotkeys for things, it's Control-Shift-S. On a PC, on a Mac, it's going to be Command-Shift-S. You got to include the shift or else it's going to be a totally different command for you. But if you click it, you'll get this little microphone that you can move anywhere on your screen. And then to type, all you have to do is click it and the system will begin listening to you. You notice how the microphone is lit up red. It's really large. That's because it's listening to me. And if I click it again, it's going to turn off. So go ahead.
I'm sorry, another question. How do you make corrections with voice typing, or is that possible?
Yeah, it's really not possible yet to say, for example, go back 2 sentences, change reason to logic. We're not there yet. So this is going to give you a really raw bulk of text. New paragraph, indent. Those feature, oh, actually it brought up my indentation options here. So that was actually a way to bring up the menu, but notice it started a new paragraph for me. So there are commands. You can do a Google search for voice typing commands in Google. And let's see if I do that. Google voice typing commands. Let's see.
Yes, Marcia, once you save it, you could go back and correct it manually. There are a couple of other questions too before you move on, if you would check those.
Sure. Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate it. So there are some, I'm looking at the support.google.com article on the voice typing here. And it does say after you start voice typing, you can use commands to edit and format your document. For example, select paragraphs, italics, go to the end of the line. Okay. So let's try these. Select the first line of the paragraph. Oh, go back one line. I don't think I'm familiar with my edits. Select all. I'm not doing something right here. It's not liking me, but it does say that there are some voice commands that will work here. And I think about students who are teamed together that maybe as they talk, they can turn on voice commands. Also, a great feature here is you can choose a different language. So for example, I'll choose Colombian Espanol. ¿Dónde está el sanitario? It didn't. ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? It tries really hard to listen. Now, of course, I'm talking in English, but by choosing a language, it's going to get the accents right based upon where they go. All right, so what were some of our other questions there?
Sorry, I had turned my mic off. One was, how do you make voice corrections with typing? So I think you've answered that. Carrie Greenan asked, what about parentheses and ellipses? I can never get those to work on my phone.
you're writing your great book like in your phone. I love it because I try to do the same things. I just entered in a link here that will take you to this page that's all about the typing with your voice. Again, the more you talk to your Google account, the better it gets at recognizing your voice and what you're trying to say. Let's try these. I need to go to the store and get eggs, milk, ellipses. No, that didn't work. Add ellipses. No. Open parentheses. That worked. Close parentheses. Okay, so that was one way to get some punctuation out of that. But if you want to, that link that I sent you is going to tell you all of the ways that you can do that. And there are even some accessibility commands that students can use. Now you have to turn on reader support. This would be really good if students had headphones on, but you can see if maybe a student has some sort of issue with their hands and they don't have fine motor skills and you want to make an accommodation on their Chromebook, there are ways to do that by turning on, again, the screen reader support, and then that student can give commands like move the cursor here, select this table row header, etc. So save that link that I just sent you. You may want to open it and bookmark it or save it somewhere so you can go back to it later and view that. So I just wanted to share, because I think that voice typing command is excellent. And again, the more you use it, the better it gets at recognizing exactly what you're trying to say, which for some of us from the South, it's a wonder that our machines can even understand anything we say sometimes. And the same thing true for people that live in like Maine and Massachusetts, right? So anyway, so I want to go through some of the other ribbon menu features that are here. Some of those features are, we kind of know. I mean, we could start a new document within a document. So I've never actually done that or used that. But something that I do like, and I think about this in regards to colleagues, parent and caregiver outreach, student outreach, is the ability to download any doc as a PDF. And I think I said this before in the Google Slides presentation. If you send a doc, even if it's a Word document with Microsoft Word, and someone doesn't have that software on their phone or on their machine, then they're probably not going to be able to open or will open the document that you've sent them. However, PDFs are this universal file format that 99% of people will be able to open on any device, no matter if it's an Apple product, a Windows phone, some type of tablet, an Android device. So if you were creating, let's say you were going to create a list of classroom rules and procedures, and you have it on a Google Doc. Well, if you send the Google Doc to parents and caregivers, are they going to be able to open it? However, if you save it as a PDF, then you're almost guaranteed that everyone across all devices is going to be able to open that up. So that's why I like to show this. Some of these other things like an e-publication, that's great if you're self-publishing an Amazon book yourself, like a digital Kindle book, but not all of us are going to do that. You could revert back and save it as a Microsoft doc. Not sure why you would do that, but I'm sure there's got to be scenarios out there or else it wouldn't be available on this menu here. But just a shout out to PDFs. I see it a lot. I see people sending attachments that are like Word documents. If you send someone a Word document or even a Google Doc, you're basically sending them this edit view right here, where they could type anything they wanted to. But for example, let's download this as a PDF. I know I hit the button. There we go. All right, so I'm going to save this as a PDF. Notice that when I open it, it's just a doc. There's no ribbon at the top. There's no word processing features that are there. It's everything that I typed, but no one can do anything with it. And that's great. You don't want anyone really manipulating your work. I mean, what if you sent students your rules and procedures in a Word doc and they changed up your rules and procedures and were like, no, you sent this, you typed this, then you'd be in some hot water there. So downloading as a PDF is a friend. Now, I could automatically email this as an attachment, make it available offline, means I could edit it if I didn't have internet access. So as long as I kept my browser up and I didn't close things out, I could edit there. Rename, I don't even know why it's here because it's so easy to rename, because all you have to do is simply go up here to the top and just rename anytime you want it, and it's going to do that.
Carrie Greenan asked, if you resave it, do you need to rename it? And then Tracy asked, can you explain the offline option again, please?
Sure. Let's do the offline option first. So the offline option is simply, I have given a command to Google that whether or not I have internet access, this document, the Renaissance, is always available for me locally on this machine to be able to edit. Now, if I'm working locally on this laptop and then I go home to my desktop where I don't have internet access, I'm not going to have access to the offline file. It's only going to be on that one machine that you were editing on, which for me, I mean, I don't have internet at the house. So I do have to make documents available offline and then take my same computer with me home so that I can edit things. And when I come back to the office and start my computer up or just open it up, once it gets an internet connection, all of those offline changes that I've made, they will go automatically to the drive up to the cloud, and we're good to go. So that's how the offline works. If you resave it, do you need to rename it? Let's try this. There is no resave feature. Now, if I make a copy of this document, Google always puts copy of in front of any copy. Now, that doesn't mean I have to use it. I could, in a sense, let's try this, name it the exact same thing. And there's going to be no conflict there. When I go back to my, let me go back to my Google Drive folder for this. Notice I can have two documents that are named the exact same thing in my Google Drive, which is not always helpful. Because if you want one version and I'm editing another and we're collaborating together, we could totally miss each other's collaborations and at the end have to scramble and put things together. That's why Google puts that copy of anytime you make a copy. It's trying to distinguish. But if you were going to make a copy, you could say copy of the Renaissance. Maybe this is Suzanne's version because Suzanne's going to go off and work on this separately. I don't know why she would, but maybe she is. We could save it that way just to distinguish between those. Let's see. Are there any other questions about that?
I don't think so. I think you answered all of them.
Okay, great. Cool. I'm sure I just made such a great face as I was just like reading down there and thinking. I just realized how ugly I may have been looking. All right. So very, oops, I accidentally clicked on something. Very helpful, the file drop-down menu. If I wanted to publish this document to the web, I could do that. What it's going to do is read this little disclaimer. Make your content visible to anyone by publishing it to the web. You can link to or embed your document. If I click publish, it's going to say, are you sure that you want to put this out on the web? And I'm going to say, yeah, it's fine for right now. What I get is a link or an embed code. So for those of you using Canvas, if you wanted to embed a doc, let's say you wanted to embed your classroom rules and procedures onto your Canvas homepage, you could do so by copying this link and putting it in your Canvas. Of course, I'm not actually doing rules and procedures here, but I'm just showing you that would allow you to have things published. Now, when you publish it, no one's going to be able to edit this document. So I'm going to go to this link for what I just published. Notice there's no menu ribbon at the top here. It's almost like the PDF, right? Except it exists at this specific URL. So for my advanced peeps who want to know how to embed things into Google Classroom or Canvas, you can embed your content that way. You could stop publishing. The great thing about publishing, because I do this on a website that I run too, is that let's say I wanted to make a change on my document, it's automatically going to change on whatever website I've embedded this to, or whether it's Canvas or Google Classroom. So I don't have to go change everything multiple times. I can just change it here and it's automatically going to change on any other site that I've embedded this to, if that makes sense, which I hope it does. So let's talk about research, and let's talk about formatting and some of those things, because I know a lot of you, I saw some great stuff from Katie Broski, who's at Palaca High School, was having students in Canvas do a lot of Google Doc work. And one thing I saw was she would ask a question that was multiple parts, and she would color code each part of a writing prompt. And then as students were writing, she expected them to color code the evidence or the citation in their writing that matched her prompt. So when she went into grade, she could say, well, I had these 3 colors, because this was a big writing prompt. They used all period to research and write. And then as I go look back at their work, I can look for those specific colors in their citations or their references or whatever, or their answers to the prompt. And it helps focus in my eyes to that. And so that got me going down a trail of using Google Docs for research purposes. Now, one thing that we do a lot of is when we're trying to make excerpts in our classroom, we may go to a bunch of different websites and make a compilation reading or text to use for the class. So let's say I wanted to take this little sentence and I'm going to delete all this out. I'm going to paste that into this document, because I haven't found one excerpt or one anchor text that serves my needs in the classroom. So I'm actually going to make that anchor text myself. So I like that. I'm going to go to this website, and let's say I like this sentence right here. Now, I'm not doing this for real, so please don't judge me here. And then I'm going to go to Wikipedia, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to embed this. Okay. Well, I don't know what this looks like to you on your screen, but I have different font, different color, different formatting going on here. And in the past, I would make the mistake of just going through every little thing and formatting it all over again, until I learned, and I almost feel embarrassed that it took me this long to learn about this tool, this icon that's been staring me at the face. But let's say, for example, that this formatting from this first website that I went to, I want the whole document to look like this. I want to teach you about the paint format, because and this probably is why I never used it, because it said paint and I was like, I'm not painting, I'm typing, I'm using text right now. But it is such a helpful little tool. So I really like this first paragraph, the formatting. So here's what I can do. I highlight all of this text and I click on this paint format button. Now it's blue. Notice it's a blue button now. If I highlight this sentence and let go, it automatically matches the font, the size, and all the formatting features of that initial prime starting place. So let me show you this again. So I really like the font and formatting of this top block of text, and I want the bottom here to match. So I highlight it, I click on the paint format little paint roller that's over here, it turns blue, and then all I have to do is select this whole bottom thing. And now, even though these excerpts came from 3 different websites with 3 different fonts and 3 different sizes and 3 different colors, now they all match. So for those of you who are kind of pulling things to use in the classroom and you're spending a lot of time formatting and trying to make it look cohesive, this is one way that you can do that, which is the Paint Format tool. And this guy is available in Google Slides as well as other Google applications. So if you knew about this, then shame on you. You should have told me years ago about this. If you didn't know about this, then join the party, because I just find myself using this a lot because I pull from so many different sources. It's nice to have that quick tool to be able to format everything the same as how I want it. Are there any questions about that? Yeah, Heather, me too. That's a good point, Belinda. Of course, it's staring at them right in the face. So they may know, but of course it was staring me right in the face for years too. And I never used it as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There was a question. Rhonda Gardner asked, would it let them know that changes have been made? And I responded to that, but would you show them how you can look at the editing button and
Sure.
then kind of capture the former edits?
Sure, I would love to. I'm going to look. Oh boy. I'm going to look.
Adam, this is
Sure.
Rhonda. This
Hey.
is Rhonda. Can I ask the question real quick?
Sure.
Okay. My question was, I just want to make sure that it was understood. When you're publishing to the web and you make edit changes, you said you can do that. Is it going to let them know, like if I put it on Canvas, will it show them an update?
No.
Or no. Okay.
Nope.
So if they don't go back and view it, they won't know I made any changes.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. That's a really good it's so seamless that there's no notification that you did make a change. So let's say you were using a Google Doc embedded in Canvas with maybe some family directions. And this is a great thing. And this is a total aside, but something I've seen from Canvas users lately is that homepage, making it very parent and caregiver friendly. We've got a lot of folks who over the past few months were kind of getting thrown to the wolves as far as what our jobs entail, being side by side with students and helping them. And so it may be that your Canvas homepage is really directed towards helping caregivers and parents know what the deal is, how they can get Canvas access, and so forth. So you're right. Let's say you change something and you were using a Google Doc that was embedded, you'd have to let them know, hey, I changed this thing out. So very good. Now,
Thank you.
no problem. I want to find a document here that's had many different changes over time, because you guys are asking some really good questions right now, but I have to find a good document that's been changed over time. Let's see, maybe this document would be good because this is a shared document. Okay. So for those of you who are wondering about how to go behind students to see, I hate to frame this in a negative because this again is not going to be the norm. But let's say you wanted to look at a version history of a document. Most of us have never done that. Most of us have never had a need to do that. But the fact that Google is auto-saving at intervals all throughout your work, it saves a version history of most all the changes that were made. So what I'm looking at right here is, and this isn't a good example because it was created on April 23rd and last used on April 24th, but maybe this will give you the idea. If I click on each one of these examples, it's showing me how this document has changed over time. So at 8:29 on April 23rd of last year, it was a blank document that I created. Then at 11:31, everything in green is showing things that I have typed by 11:31. At 2:17, it is showing you changes that I made. So I took out this and I added this into it. And this last version is just the way that it is because I didn't make any changes. And again, this wasn't a good one to use. I want to find a document that has had tons of changes over time. But maybe that's the best that we can do. I don't know if this one's had. So if I go to file and if I go to version history and see version, yeah, this isn't a good one either. I wish I had something that was done. But anyway, if you wanted to know how something got built, especially if it was being shared by multiple students, you could go to the version history and go through each specific edit. And if it's shared between collaborators, you can actually click and see what each one of those had done at any given time. Now, this is great. Let's say a bunch of changes got made and things got deleted, and you wanted to go back in time, maybe a couple days before all these deletions happened, and restore a previous version. You could do that as well from here. Which is great because it alleviates a lot of the stress that we used to have with Microsoft Word. Like, oh, I don't have the old version. I have the new one on my thumb drive. I don't know how to get to that. I burned it to a CD-ROM. I don't have the old versions. This is going to always allow you to go back and look at those changes. Let's see. I really wanted to find one that had a ton of changes over time with multiple people. You guys are being so patient and so good with me as I'm just like clicking around and trying to find. Let's see if this version history has more. Nope, I was wrong. But again, I could go back in time. Let's start at the very first version when this was created last October at 3:16, it was blank. Then everything in green, you notice I have a little green icon next to my name. If there were other people on this document working, they would have other colors. And every time they made changes, you would be able to see their changes highlighted in this color. So the first thing I did was cut and paste this excerpt from this article. I don't know why that just disappeared. Let's see, the second thing I did was, must have changed a header or footer. Oh, here I took out all of this text. Anything that is crossed out is showing stuff that I deleted. And now you'll see after that, everything is clean. I changed the word mosquitoes around here to be plural because it wasn't already in that article. So version history, this is a great way to go look at a student's document, and essentially you could see any time that edits or changes were made. You could also see if they shared their document with fellow students, peers, what those peers did to edit or manipulate that document as well. So for some of us in college, if we would have had this when it came time for group project work, and remember when we had to put together our Microsoft Word documents, imagine if those professors went back and could look and see like, Heather did 90% of all the edits on this document with her group. Adam did 0. I don't see Adam's name here at all, because remember, there was always that one person who didn't do anything, but then for some reason the day of, they wanted to present the project in front of the class. I'm not saying that was me, but I know people who did that. So that again gives you a lens to see how that document was formed and who had a hand in creating that document.
Adam, there's a couple of questions. Were you looking at the questions or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, Karen, it is available in Google Sheets, where you can go back. Very, very handy stuff on our spreadsheets to go back and look at edits and things like that. If you restore, can you? Yes, that's a great question, Catherine. What we can do with a version history is we can actually name a specific version. So let's say I really like the way that this was at 3:17 p.m. I could click this little, what used to be a hamburger button, now it's called something else. And I could actually make a copy right from here. So make a copy of the way it was back in time. I could make a copy and it's going to say, how do you want to name this copy? And you could rename it and choose which folder to save it in. Or inside of this one document, I could name a version. So I can call this one original template and hit save. Now I've named it in a way where I'll remember, oh, that was the original way that it was done, or this is when this person made an edit. You could only show the named versions, or you could see everything that's available here. Now, if I wanted to, I could click the restore version and restore this. It's going to create a totally new document when I restore it, so I'll have both versions. And this is when you start getting into the whole, how am I managing my Google Drive and my folders? Because you're going to want to have a handle on that if you're ever going to restore any old versions here. Yes, the versions are going to be there for as long as the document lives in your Google Drive. And Carolyn, your question, yes, pretty much exempt. That's a great legal way that I would frame that as part of my legal practice. If you are going to sell it on Teachers Pay Teachers, then no. If you're going to charge your students to read a document that you've created, then no, you're not exempt. But if you're using this for classroom instruction, then it's considered fair use under education copyright laws. Those are really, really good things to know when going about doing this. And that was found by going File and then Version History, and then see the version history. And if you want the hotkey, it's Control-Alt-Shift-H. I guess H would be for history. That's a lot. Control-Alt-Shift-H. That's a 4-button hotkey. So that is something for really good advanced users there. This document, I guess there's so many options just in the file drop-down menu alone. One of the most basic things is the page setup. It's all the way down here at the bottom. If I wanted this document to be landscape, and if I wanted to change the margins so that they were a little bit smaller, and if I wanted to even change the page color, or if I was going to print this on legal, because maybe I had access to some legal pages and this was going to be a graphic organizer or something, I could do that as well. And watch what happens. Now I have turned this into a landscape oriented page versus the traditional portrait view that's set by default. Now, again, that's kind of dangerous. If you go to your page setup, I could actually set this as my default. So anytime I opened a new Google Doc, it would open under these new settings. Now, I'm not going to do that because I like my portrait, because that's what I use most of the time. But if you find yourself always adjusting the margins because you're trying to fit it on one page to save money, then maybe you do want to set your narrow margins as your default in your account, and that way you never have to go back and adjust that over and over and over again every time you want to print something or get it ready to send to the printer. So other things, because I'm looking at the time here, that I would like to go over. Obviously, just like Microsoft Word, there's undo and redo. So if you make changes and you're not happy with those changes, you could just hit Control-Z or hit the little arrow right here. Notice I don't even have to go to the edit menu. I could just simply go back and undo. Let's go to this Renaissance one. I could undo any changes. Now I'm undoing the cutting and pasting. I'm undoing the formatting. Everything can be undone. A new feature is the ability to add new fonts. For a long time, Google Docs just had a core package of fonts that was available. But there's a new More Fonts link here where if you click on it, it's going to show you everything that's available. And if you want it to appear in your drop-down font list, you can just click to turn it on or turn it off. Notice when it's blue, that means it's on, so that it appears in your font drop-down list. So I could search for Avenir, for example, and it is turned on, or I could turn it off. And that's going to determine what appears in my drop down here. Now, my most recent, they appear here. I don't know why Comic Sans is here, because I swear to God, I've never used Comic Sans in my life. But for some reason, it's there. That's just a little Comic Sans joke that we have. So let's get back to researching. We talked about formatting. If we're making excerpts like a text anchor for a class from multiple different texts, I showed you how we could cut and paste and format it using our paint roller. And also I showed this in Google Slides, but it operates a little bit differently in Google Docs. This Explore button that's down here at the bottom, this is so cool. The artificial intelligence knew that from what I have typed into this document so far, maybe I'm doing something about the Renaissance or 14th century or the Middle Ages because that was text that I used. I could automatically click on one of these, and what's really happening is in the right-hand column here, it's doing some Google searches for me. So without leaving my tab, without leaving this document, I can actually look up information about what it is I'm writing about here. Let's act like this came from Wikipedia, which we used to laugh about Wikipedia as a source for like college papers in high school, upper high school, term papers and reports. Until it exceeded Encyclopedia Britannica as far as reliability goes. But it's still a tough pill to swallow. Let's say that this came from the Wikipedia article. I want you to pay attention to when I move my mouse cursor these little quotation marks that appear based on what I'm actually pointing my mouse cursor on. If I click this, it's going to automatically cite this with a footnote in my document for me. So I'm going to show you this. Let's say that this whole little block of text, I want to cite it, and it came from this article. If I click the little quotation marks, notice it now puts the little one superscript for a footnote, as well as insert a citation right here into the document for me. And I didn't have to type any of this. Notice that it created the hyperlink so I could go straight to it if I wanted to. And it tells me when this was accessed, which, coming from the web, especially coming from Wikipedia, where things change as editors contribute more and more, that's a great thing to know. And I love this little research feature here because it gives me everything that I need right from this one space. If I wanted to find images to embed into my article, I could click on images and see the little plus sign. If I click that, it inserts this image. Oh, I don't know why it says unable to. I think it's just thinking because I am on a Google Meet call at the same time while trying to do this. Let's try this with another image.
Adam, the comments on this are hilarious.
Oh, yeah?
Miss Overturf said, "Where was this in 1978? Where did you locate the button?" Can you go back and show where you got there again? But you have to read the comments for this because they're pretty cute.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so if I'm doing research through my Google Doc, it's kind of hidden, and I can't zoom in on it very well for some reason. Right down here in the bottom right-hand corner, it hides, but it's this little star. And if you hover over it and click Explore, it's going to open up this right-hand Explore column for you. And this is where you can do research for your topic. One thing about this is it uses Google's safe search feature. So for students in the classroom, it's already filtering out questionable content. It's not the same content that you would get if you just went to google.com and started typing in the Renaissance. We know that, you know, you're going to get more search results there, but here it's more tailored for educational purposes. So Google Safe Search is on. What I did was I clicked on Renaissance, and I could type in, if I wanted to, Renaissance here, same thing. And it's going to give me information about the Renaissance as well as web results. So if I used something, let's say, all right, let's go to this Britannica article. So I could click on the Britannica article link. We'll give it a second to load because I have lots of things. Now, let's say I wanted to cite these sentences. Pop up. Come on. Let's say I wanted to use this as part of my writing. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it into my article. I say, I'm going to paste it. There we go. And then what I can do is, since I use this Britannica, leave my mouse cursor at the end here and hover and find these little quotation marks. And I'm going to click on it. Oh, I did it 2 times. And notice it added the little superscript 2 right behind that piece of text. And it also is just going to compile a running list of footnotes that's going to just keep building as I keep citing research in this document. It's going to all just compile right here with hyperlinks. A compass. Yes, it's not a star. Thank you, Laura. Yes, it does. Let's go back here and look. It's only going to compile the footnotes at the bottom of that. Well, actually, it's just going to keep going. If I just hit enter and if I'm adding text, it's going to keep the footnotes in the footer of that specific page where the citation was used. So very similar to if you read nonfiction text and you've got your superscript little 1, 2, 3 at the bottom of your page, generally you always have the footnotes. Notice it's not on the last page, it's on whatever page these footnotes were used. And again, I want to bring up another thing. Notice how the font is different in both size and style. This is using Georgia size 15. This is using Fira Sans 13.5. And if I want to make a match, all I have to do is highlight the one that I like, click the paint roller, highlight the one I want to change, and now everything automatically happens. Now, if you thought that was cool, this would be a good aside for some of the add-ons that you can add. Now, every time I say add-on, those of you that have been with me, I always use the analogy of a hot rod. You had kids in the early 60s who were taking their grandparents' 1934 Ford Roadster 3-window coupe, which was a grandpa car, and they were adding all these things on there that made them cool and hip, right? At least I think that's the way it worked. And you can add add-ons as well to your applications in Google that hot rod them out. And I think, Miss Overturf, you're gonna this one may blow your mind, because this one blew my mind too. I added something called Easy Bib Bibliography Creator, and there's other online versions of this, but this embeds it into your Google document. If you want an add-on, you can go, I'm going to add-ons. It's one of the drop-down menus on our ribbon up here. I'm going to go get add-ons, and you'll see that there is just a world of different add-ons that are available for you to hot rod your Google Docs. And students can add these on their Chromebooks as well. They are free add-ons. I think there are paid ones, but 99% of them are free. I am using EasyBib, which is a bibliography tool, but there's also this one that I wanted to show my math instructors. If you want to embed notations and formulas, even handwriting equations that appear in Google Docs, there is a free add-on for you to be able to do that. This, I mean, I don't have it because I'm too dangerous with it. I would be, I have no need to do this. But for chemistry, for any math class at any level, you can create your own formulas and embed those as images into a Google Doc. So that's just a little aside for that one. But I've got this EasyBib. I want to take you back to when you were doing MLA citation. So if I go to docs.google.com, and I added this into my when I added this into my Google Doc environment, I got a new template that automatically appeared in my template gallery, and it's called MLA report. Now, I don't have to use this, but I like the fact that it is a template that's here. So I'm going to click on my MLA report. Now, EasyBib automatically put this into my template folder. I didn't have to do anything. This was automatically. So I'm going to click use. The thing about this is, oh, let's see. You can enter in any book, any journal article, and any website, and it will prepare for you a bibliography automatically without you having to do that. Now, some of our old librarians would just be rolling in their graves right now, because you remember how tough it was to learn about hanging indents and how do I format, where does the comma go, where do the quotations, do I italicize this, do I italicize that? So let's say I wanted to use the power of myth as part of this report, and I'm using this template that's already made for MLA citation. If I click search, it's now searching for books that have the power of myth as part of the title, even in different languages. And if this is the version that I'm using, the 2012 version, all I have to do is click select, and it has created this citation for me. All I have to do is click add bibliography to doc, and notice my works cited page, I didn't type that in at all. It was automatically there for me because I used this add-on as part of my Google Doc. Now, if it was a website, I wonder if, like, let's say I wanted to take this history.com, not that you should ever do this in a real report. I can select history.com. I'm going to leave this up so you can watch what this looks like when I click add bibliography to doc. Oops. You can see it added it right here. I could even choose different citation versions.
I was wondering that, actually. That was a note I was going to have for Adam for later.
So those of you who are still in college right now and are writing a lot, if it's supposed to be an APA, you can select APA, and it's going to totally change that format for you. And part of me feels like, well, there was such an art and a science to this. It was important to know. But I think about the way things are now, and it's important to cite, yes. We cannot steal people's words. We cannot steal people's ideas. But does it have to be so painful to create the citation in and of itself when I can just let technology do that for me? So that is the EasyBib add-on that anyone can add. Anyone who has a Google account and is using Google Docs, the world is your oyster when you start looking at what add-ons are available. Now, I also have, it's not an add-on, but it's an extension. Some of you may be familiar with Grammarly. And if I do a Google search, Grammarly extension, I am so afraid of bad grammar and making typos that I use this free Grammarly service. It's something, and it's an extension you can add on to Chrome. Now I already have it loaded into Chrome. And if you'll notice down here in the bottom of my screen, there's a 5. That's Grammarly telling me there's 5 mistakes that it's identified within this text on this screen. Now, when you add this to Chrome, not only does it work on Google Docs, it works on any window where you are typing text. So Gmail, just anything that you're going to, if you're on a blog, if you're on Reddit, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook on your machine and you're typing text, it's going to evaluate what you're typing. And notice I've got these little red underlines. That's not the Google spell check and language service. That's Grammarly. Grammarly operates at a much higher level. And there is a pro premium version that you can pay for. In 3 years, I've never found a need to have the paid version. the basic version works fine for me. So for instance, if I click on this 5, it's going to open up this little window here that's telling me these are all the spelling mistakes. Well, of course, I've got some Spanish words here. So of course they're going to say, but look at the reason why it gives for reason. If I click on it, look, it's even telling me it appears that you are missing a comma after the introductory phrase for some reason. Consider adding a comma. So I could come back here and, oh, I don't know why it's not letting me do it now. I could just add the comma and it goes away. It's not an issue any longer. But I like Grammarly because it tells you why something needs to be changed, not just if it's spelled incorrectly, but especially when it comes to semicolons, which we all are a little timid about using, regular colons, things like that, punctuation that trips us up. It's always going to tell you why you should change that. Look here, it appears that you're missing a comma or two with the interrupter. Okay, consider adding the commas. So it's really trying to make sense of what I am saying. And when I'm typing an email out, it even tells me, does your email sound confrontational, friendly? It gives me some hints like that. So I think about students using Grammarly as well on their Chromebooks, how they aren't just finding out that something's spelled incorrectly or they're missing a comma, they're getting a little reason why. So it kind of creates an additional scaffold that's embedded into this. And it'll color code, notice it'll color code based on purpose. So anything that's red is around correctness. Anything that's in blue, like really, it appears that really may be unnecessary in the sentence. Consider removing it. Probably because I normally don't try to use adverbs too much. But if it was green, it would mean that helps, again, make your writing more interesting and effective. And so Grammarly is a tool that you can use adding onto your Chrome as an extension that's just going to give you another level to view how your writing comes across to audiences, and are there any mistakes that the Google spell checker and language checker have not picked up on. I'm going to pause. Karen, I agree with you. Commas and spacing, and I'm still a holdout as to 2 spaces after a period. I know that this new generation wants me to put 1, but
I just found out like a month ago that it wasn't a thing anymore.
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. It really has to do with that fact that we view everything on screens now. 2 periods after a space really had to do with printing things out and how things appeared when like a newspaper print was justified. But now we find that with the web format, you only need 1. I don't know. I'm going to do 2 till the day I die. I'm ride or die with my 2 spaces after a period. But anyway, let me check the chat to see if there are any questions. Citations were like using a slide rule back in the day. That is so funny. My dad used to tell me about his slide rule classes in his high school and college. Like every semester they had to brush up on their slide rule skills depending upon which math they were in. Yeah, these are so funny. More time and desk space. Grammarly is an extension, not an add-on. But it all works together because Grammarly is going to work on any tab, not just if you're doing a Google Doc or a Google Slide. It's going to work for anything that you're doing while you're on the internet in your Chrome browser. It's gonna keep you straight. Marsha, I'm never converting. That's so funny. You guys are silly, but you guys feel the pain of everything that's here. So that's great. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, somebody had a question before this started who sent me a question about hyperlinks. And this is great. We've seen here already that in our document, that when we use our research tool, the little compass, thank you for telling me it was the compass, that it automatically created hyperlinks, and Google hyperlinks have changed in the last few months. Now, when you click on it once, it actually shows you a little preview window of what that web page looks like. But I'm going to show you guys how to, and then you could go to it by just clicking on the link here and it would take you. But I'm going to show you how to create your own hyperlinks. So let's say that I wanted to create a hyperlink back to this page on the Renaissance. So what I'm going to do is select all of the URL, and I can do that by double clicking, or I could Control A, which is select everything, and then I could right click. I say I could right click and hit copy, or I could Control C copy. If I'm on a Mac, I'm going to Command D to copy this guy over. And we can do hyperlinks in two different ways. One way I could do it is just clicking Control V, and that's pasting, or I could right click and paste into this document, or I could edit and paste into this document. Whatever works for you, that's fine. Now, notice Google's so smart, it automatically takes my link and turns it into a hyperlink of sorts. But let's say I wanted to hyperlink words. So the Renaissance, let's say I wanted students or someone to be able to click on this and go to that page without seeing all of this. This is nasty looking when you're trying to create a clean document. All those percents and 20s and everything, it's taking up too much space. But let's say I want to turn this into a hyperlink. I got a couple ways that I can do that. I have to highlight it first, and always I have to highlight it. Now I could click insert a new link, or Control K, or Command K if you're on a Mac. So Control K is going to say, okay, where do you want this to go? And I can paste in, I want it to go here, and notice this text is now blue, showing me that it's hyperlinked, it's underlined. And instead of this long URL, this ugly URL, this word has become my URL, and I can click on it and it will automatically take anyone to this history.com page. And this pretty much works on all things, not even just Google Docs, but on all things. You can save yourself some room and some ugliness by deliberately hyperlinking certain words in a text versus having a whole URL eat up a lot of space and just looking ugly in your document.
Adam, would you walk through the steps of doing that again? Someone asked for a replay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the first thing we need is a place to go. So that's why we grab this URL here. And I'll grab a different, I'll grab the one from Wikipedia is a little bit cleaner here to see. So I could, and notice, actually, before we do that, notice how Wikipedia does this. A lot of websites use text versus a whole entire link as a hyperlink. So if I see, oh, European history is blue in this article, I know that I can click on it and be taken to the article on European history. So I just need to copy this. So I can select it and hit copy, or I can Control C it if I wanted to. I come back here and I can select specific words that I want to hyperlink. I want to turn them blue. I want to make them live and engaging. I can click this insert link button. It's the little chain links. I actually know what that icon is, chain link. Or I could hit Control K when it's highlighted. Let me get my mouse over. Oh, I'm having mouse issues. There we go. And then simply paste in here and hit apply. And now notice it's blue, it's hyperlinked. I can click on it and actually go out to that web page specifically. You guys are funny with your comments. You guys are having a good time in the chat box. I like that. We're gonna have to save some of these little zingers. I think I saw an OK Boomer in there somewhere too, so that's great. All right, so a couple more things before we go, because I know I'm approaching 11 here, and I didn't think I'd go this long, but I want to at least cover a couple more topics. One would be how to give feedback to a student, or how students can give feedback to each other. So let's say we've shared this document, and maybe we're students working on a group project together, and we're working in this one document about the Renaissance. And some are contributing, some are cutting and pasting things, some are actually writing out their ideas, and we're all doing it in this editing view. What do I mean by editing view? Well, I got a little pencil up here at the top that tells me that right now we are in editing mode. Okay, there's 3 different modes or ways to view a Google Doc. We're all familiar with the editing mode. This is how we start a doc. This is how we work on a doc. We're all good with this. But there are 2 other modes to look at. One is a view mode. So the view mode takes away all of the junk and all of the editing tools and tries to give you a glimpse of, this is what it looks like if you were going to print it, if you were going to publish it to a web page, this is what you're going to see. So none of the extraneous, it's not going to show you, at least it hasn't for years, shown you spelling mistakes in the view only view. Notice this icon is just a little eyeball now. That means we're in viewing mode. We were in editing mode, which is the pencil. But there is this third view called suggestions. One of the great things about collaborating on a Google Doc together is you can leave comments to one another. You can highlight passages or words and leave a comment so that someone who is working on this can go back and change something or consider something. So let's see, what have we got here? The Renaissance is credited with bridging the gap between the Middle Ages and modern day civilization. So let's say I'm a student and I'm now in suggesting mode. This says edits become suggestions. This works differently than editing mode. Let's say I don't like the word gap. I want it to be divide. Notice how it's in green and it's taking out the word gap, because I think our teacher's going to like divide better than gap. And you'll notice it says Adam Missoula said replace gap with divide. So if we're working on this together and leaving comments and feedback, here's what I love about this. Watch what happens to the word gap and the green divide. If I click this accept suggestion button, it's going to take that suggestion for an edit and make it so in the suggestion version. Again, there are 3 ways to view a document. We could just view it, we can edit it, which we're all familiar with, but there's also the suggesting mode. So for instance, let's say I want to add a comment here. I'm going to highlight this sentence. Take this out. And I can, and someone can mark it as resolved if they want to. But if I want to delete it, watch what happens. If I highlight it and click backspace or delete, notice that it's all in green and it's there's a strike through going through that sentence. And it automatically left a comment here that I'm making this comment that we should delete this out. And if I click accept this, then it's automatically going to go. So this feature is really meant for if you're collaborating with colleagues or if you're a student collaborating with peers, this is going to save you from making changes to someone else's work without them knowing why or what you want to change or what you want something to be. But the great thing is if you click accept, it automatically takes those changes and makes them a part of the document going forward. So let's say, I know that I want Middle Ages to be here, but let's say I want to replace it with medieval. Note it's not, I don't know if I'm spelling this right or not. It's not totally deleting it. Oh, look, Grammarly just kicked in. Thank you, Grammarly. It's not deleting it out. Look, if I want to delete this whole thing, it's not really going to take it and delete it in suggestion mode. It's just creating little comments over here like, this is a suggestion. If I don't want to do it, I can reject the suggestion and it all reverts back to the way that it was. And so I find this is a very powerful collaboration and feedback tool, no matter if you are an educator or if you are a student who is on the same dock at the same time together.
Adam, Amy Melvin asks, can you see your history of that?
Well, let's go look and see. That's a great question.
And Anjana said that's where version history is important. So
I'm going to go back. Yes, it looks like here's where I deleted it out, but it's, and here's where I suggested replacing medieval with Middle Ages with medieval. So yes, I could. Here's that sentence that I took out. So yeah, if I go back to all of these edits in time, I could see what it was. And if I don't like what happened to this document, I could make a copy or name a new version and use that new version from here as well. So that's a really good question. I'm glad we could look at that together. I didn't know if it would or not. So that's very good. Any other questions? Great, no problem. One last thing before we, I'm gonna start singing Hamilton one last time, but I won't. But I want
Adam,
to.
Tracy Oppenhauer had a question.
Sure.
When you're collaborating, do you put it in suggestion mode and then share? And thanks, Anjana. We love them too. We love to get to interact with you guys.
That is a good question, Tracy. We may have to try this out. Tracy is asking, if I share this with someone in suggesting mode, will it open in the suggesting mode on their side? So let's try this. I'm going to hit the share button and I'm going to share this with you, Tracy, and I'm sharing it with you in suggesting mode. I don't think there's anything I do want you to be an editor because we're going to work on this together. So I'm going to send this to Tracy, and Tracy's going to be our little canary in the coal mine. She's going to open it up, and if you wouldn't mind, Tracy, typing back in the chat, when you open it up on your end, is it in full editing mode or is it in suggestion mode?
Hey, Adam, while we're waiting for her, could the person who had trouble logging in earlier, could you let me know what your name is? I just don't want to, I want to make sure I don't miss you in taking roll.
Yes. Sure. My name is Barbara Davis, D-A-V-I-S, and I teach at FSU Lab School. And I've been taking notes, and I had my Google Docs open while you were talking. And I have to say that even without seeing what you were saying, this has been like the best PD that I've received online.
Oh, awesome.
Because so much of the things I've gone to, they're fluffy. Oh,
Yeah.
Here's a green screen. It's fluffy. It's cute. I mean, this was very useful. So
Great.
I look forward to accessing the video version of it so I can see what you were doing.
Yeah.
But I was following along.
Great.
Yeah.
And like I tell everyone, the video takes a couple hours to render. After we close the video out, it'll take a couple hours to render. But what you do is, if you have a Google Calendar, all you have to do is go back to the calendar event for this, and it'll be an attachment on here. Or you can go back to the email, and I think you'll be able to access the attachment by those means as well. So it'll be on, if you're using Google Calendar, it'll be there for you as well.
Yes,
And-
I did use that. Thank you.
Good. And Tracy Umpenhauer, did it open in suggesting mode for you or editing mode for you?
So can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so when I open it, it gives me the editing where I would have to choose edit document directly, suggesting, or viewing. It doesn't just come up as suggesting. So like
Okay.
I just took political and deleted it because I'm in edit mode. So it doesn't seem to come up automatically for suggesting. Now I'd have to hit suggesting and then put that in.
Okay, well, that's good to know. We needed to know that. And look, if we look at our version history now, because we have shared this with Tracy, she now appears with a little purple icon. So anything that Tracy did to change this document, here's what she just told us. She took out the word political. It's showing Tracy deleted political at 10:50 on July 7th. So you don't know. I mean, this is such a great problem-solving tool in the world of collaborating with people. Sometimes accidents happen. We've all done it. We've deleted names off of spreadsheets, but once we know we can go back a version and find something and add it back in, or cut and paste and add that back in, it alleviates some of the stress of, I got to get it right the first time. Now,
Also, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that though. You were pausing. I also wanted just to say, I know sometimes we put kids in a box, but I use this with first graders. And it was a powerful, powerful tool for them to do research on Native Americans, or even to answer a question in a collaborative way. When we think about going back to school and continuing some social distancing while trying to have collaboration, this is a really great tool, even for little kids to use. So if you teach younger grades, I want you to be thinking about ways that you could use this without kind of saying, oh, well, they're little, they couldn't possibly do this. And it's not perfect, but that's why I knew the editing piece or the version history was there, because I often had to go back and find a history piece for them until they understood how to actually collaborate together. So
that's great. Thank you for that aside. Yeah. And YouTube, again, I can't say it enough, especially at the lower grade bands. If you're wondering, just like Suzanne said, how can I? We have Chromebooks. We go to a specials computer lab twice a week. How can I? Go to YouTube and search in some keywords and you'll find lots of videos, probably cell phone videos of teachers doing it in the classroom, but still, nonetheless, that's great. Now, Tracy, one of the great things about collaborating together is I can see right now on this document that Tracy is live and in the building, right? She's live and in the set right now because she is lit up. She's not grayed out. So I know that she's actively on this document. What I love is if I hover over her name, I could send her an email directly. I could schedule a calendar event with her. I could send her a private message, or we could start a video call together. And in this day and age of distance learning and working across zip codes and across county lines, I love this ability here as well. Now, Tracy said when she logged in, she had full editing rights. And that's right, because if you notice, on the sharing settings, I made her an editor because I wanted to see if she had full access. Would she launch in suggestion mode? Now, I could have shared with Tracy this document and just made her a viewer. Now, if I save this, Tracy is no longer going to be able to edit this document at all. She is simply going to, and notice, look, it says permission updated for Tracy here. She can only look at it. She cannot make any changes. Now, I don't want that because I want Tracy's opinion, but maybe I just want to make Tracy a commenter. So if I make her a commenter, now what Tracy can do is give me feedback. So it's not like she can actually change the text, but look, she's actually leaving me little bits of feedback that aren't a part of the document that really only those who are collaborating on this can see it, right? So she's adding, love this. I love this too because it's a great way to get feedback. And I don't know, does anybody actually use the phone to call people and talk to anyone anymore? I try not to as much as I can. So I'm all about leaving the text. And Tracy's little comment here, I can either accept it or reject it. I could mark it as completed. Sometimes comments appear that are like, did you complete this? And you can click yes or no. So those sharing settings are really, really, really important. So like if I was going to share this with Suzanne, it's going to ask me, do you want her to be an editor, a viewer, or a commenter? I want her to be an editor. I could send her a message. Hey, this is what we are using today. Because this is going to actually send her an email when I've invited with a link to get into this document here. Now, here is something else that I find working with colleagues gets overlooked. Let me go back. I'm going to share this with Suzanne, but I haven't hit the send button yet because I'm going to go look at this little gear here for settings. And there are two settings that live behind that gear. The first is editors can change permissions and share. That means once I've given Suzanne full range, she could go back to Tracy's sharing settings and say, now Tracy is a full editor, or now Tracy is a viewer only. And then Suzanne could share this with anyone in the world that she wanted to. If I click this and turn this off, now Suzanne can't do that. She can't invite anyone else to collaborate, and she also can't change anyone's permissions on the document. The last one here is viewers and commenters can see the option to download, print, and copy. Now, if you don't want anyone doing that, you can uncheck this, and then you've really limited a lot of the sharing settings here. Now, even though Suzanne is an editor, she's still not going to be able to invite new people to collaborate as well as change anyone's permissions exactly. So if I send it to her, she's a little bit limited, but sometimes that's really good. Maybe sometimes you don't want people to be able to make a copy of something that's in the works, or maybe it's a top secret project and you don't want it getting out just yet. So you could limit those settings as well. And in the last 2 minutes that we have here, actually 1 minute that we have here, I just want to show you 2 URL commands to force someone to copy your document. And I showed this in slides, so if you were a part of the slides, you would have actually seen this. Let's say I wanted to share this via a link. And I want to get the link to this document. A long, long, long link. I'm going to paste it right here. Now, if I take out edit, I know it's hard to see because I can't zoom in all the way there. If I take out edit and everything after, and I insert the word copy, well, now if I send someone this link, it's going to force them to create a copy into their own Google Drive. Maybe I don't want them editing the master. And this is great for like lesson plans and lesson plan templates. Maybe you got a new teacher who's new to your district, doesn't know the format. Maybe you're an LSI school and you've got some very specific parameters around lesson plans. You can force a copy so that no one changes your work, but they have their own copy. And all you do is, when you have the URL, you change edit and anything after edit to copy. And that's going to force this. I could even do it up here when I'm in my editing mode. I could change this to copy, and it's going to force this. So if I send this link in an email, this link that's up at the top, no one's going to be able to edit my document directly, but they're going to be able to create a copy of my document. This is great for graphic organizers, again, lesson plan templates. But what is not good about this is it never shows you what you're making a copy of. So if I send something to Suzanne and Suzanne's not expecting this, I'm working ahead or I'm working behind and she's not expecting this to come through, how would she know that this is a specific document that I need her to work on with me? It doesn't show you that here. That's the only limitation. But let me show you something else that you can do with the URL. Remember when we went to docs.google.com, we had our template gallery and we could look through all of these pre-made templates. So let's say, let's suspend all disbelief here. Let's say that this was a lesson plan template that I was working on, and I wanted to add a template to my gallery, or I wanted to share a template with someone. Instead of edit, you can add template/preview to the end of the URL. So totally remove the word edit at the end and anything that's behind edit, and you add template/preview. This is actually going to turn this into a template. I know this is not a great example because this is just text, but you could share this with someone and they would actually be able to see, oh, this is what they're sharing with me. And once I click use template, now it goes in my template folder and I can use that template every single time. So thinking about students in the classroom, if you have designed a graphic organizer, you could share the link with them in Canvas or Google Classroom as a template. Maybe they're going to be using it over and over again. Maybe you have a section of Canvas that's like graphic organizer templates, and you have all your links, and you're like, today I want you to use a T-chart. Today I want you to use an A to Z graphic organizer. And they know to go find that and use the template to create their own. And I'll show you that again. It's simply by taking this URL right here and removing edit and anything that appears after edit and changing it to template/preview. And then you can cut and paste this link. You could put it in an email. You can embed it into Canvas. You can embed it into Google Classroom. And whoever is going to be on the receiving end of this can just use this template. And then the template lives in your drive. And instead of making a copy of where that version history is following and it gets crazy over time, it's starting with a fresh template each time it's used. But to use that, I will always say, make sure you know what your link sharing settings are set as. Because, for example, only people added can open up this link. That may not work. I may need to change this with anyone with the link can open this up. That way I've not restricted it down. But those are your sharing settings. I know that it's 11:05 and I know that I've gone over time. I know that I said I thought I was only going to be an hour and a half, but it's hard to stop the train when it leaves the station. But I'm going to stop. Are there any other questions? Karen, I think you can share this video when it appears on the Google Calendar. You may be able to share. If you can't, email me. They can't get credit for being here, but they most certainly can watch the video. No problem whatsoever. I don't think that will be a problem at all. Yeah, Robert, I'm glad you're here. I don't think that it's any problem to show students this. Or if you want to, Jake had a great session on YouTube 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and he showed how to make a playlist in YouTube. You can find little 2-minute videos of like how to create a template, how to format, how to use the Compass Explore tool, and even make a playlist for students from YouTube so that they could watch this. But that's helpful. And Jake said he's repeating that session in a couple weeks as well. So if you weren't a part of it, you can register to join. Let us know. Are there any other questions? Anyone want to turn on their mic? Anybody want to ask anything before we end? Thank you.
The part where you did the preview versus template, do you do the / with template and preview, or just preview?
It's both. It's both. It's a /. So so I would take out the edit and it's template. So you have to have both in there, template / preview, to get it to work. It won't work with just one or the other.
Thanks.
No problem. All right. Well, thank you. We will see you at 1. Have a great lunch. Don't eat a bunch of pasta because I don't want to see anybody sleeping on their camera at 1 o'clock. That's try to keep the carbs down to a minimum. Go take a walk or something, or drink some water before 1, and that way we'll be alert. But we'll be doing Google Forms at 1. Thank you all. I appreciate you for being a wonderful and beautiful audience and very helpful. Lots of questions, so that's great. But anyway, enjoy your lunch, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
There's a different link this afternoon. Adam will send it out.
It is a different link. Yep, I sent it out yesterday, and I will send it out in about 1 hour from now. I'll send you the second link again in case you missed it, so it'll be at the top of your email. Thank you, Dr. Parker. Have a good lunch. Bye-bye.